Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier catching up on some Mike's Instant Movie reviews. Normally I do theatrical stuff, but I will do an exception. Chowchilla is a documentary on Max. By the way, how come HBO has this streaming service called Max when their competitor is named Cinemax? It's very confusing and upsetting to everyone. But anyway, Chowchilla is this documentary. This is something that I knew nothing about, quite frankly, Frank. I did not know this horrible situation happened to these poor children. I believe the year was 1975, July. These kids in this small California town where everyone loved each other before cell phones, before all this crap, before the internet. These kids were just going to summer school, actually enjoying summer school. Little kids, too. I mean, the youngest 4 and the oldest kid was 14. Not really sure why he was there. It seemed like he was several years older than the other kids. And their school bus driver were coming home. They had a field trip to the pool. And the bus driver's taking the kids home, and they're making several stops. And then there's a white van blocking off the road. And, what normal person would do, you'd stop your bus. And then he stops, and the guy comes out with pantyhose on his fucking head, and he's got a rifle, and another guy's got a rifle, and 3 guys have rifles on this poor bus driver and I believe 25 children. And they come onto the bus, and the next thing you know, they're sticking these kids into 2 vans. Well, first I believe they drove the bus somewhere off the beaten path, and then they disperse the children into 2 separate vans. This is a real story, by the fucking way. Then they take the kids. The kids don't know where they are. They put them into this underground thing. The kids don't know what they're in. It turns out they're in a moving truck, of all things, and they're basically buried under a bunch of soot and dirt. And they've got these giant bus tires over a manhole cover. And they've got a certain amount of food and some horrible boxes to facilitate in. And these are little kids that's going through this nightmare. And this is a real story. And so what happened? What's going on? So the whole town's in an uproar, but it's such a small town that there's only one phone line at the police station. And these 3 assholes who fucking did this to these kids, first of all, they all come from fucking money, but they all managed to get themselves into debt. So now they come up with this cockamamie idea based on something they saw from a Dirty Harry Clint Eastwood movie, that they're going to kidnap these poor children and ransom them for $5 million, which is basically $27 or $28 million in today's money. And that's their fucking plan. Now their plan is thwarted, first of all, because the children are from this small police station. Like I said, no internet back in 1975. So they couldn't even call in their ransom demands because the phone line is busy the whole time because the people are calling for the children. And the community is in an uproar, and time is a valuable thing, folks, because if you don't know where the kids are, the parents are going nuts. The authorities are going nuts. But the kids, meanwhile, are basically, they're going to suffocate and die. If not, the dirt is going to fall in on their little heads. And so the hero of this documentary is basically the guy they call the 14-year-old cowboy, who's still alive, still with us. A little tip of the hat to him. 14-year-old kid basically mans up. No offense to the bus driver, but he seemed like at that point he could kind of submitted himself to death, like he just didn't have the fight in him. But this 14-year-old kid is determined to figure something out. So him and the bus driver are walking around, in this thing that they're in. They don't realize what it is at the time. It's a moving truck, and they discover that the only real option or possibility to even get out is to push up on the same manhole cover that they got buried into. But it's got these heavy bus batteries on top of them, like 2 of them that are like 125 pounds each. So the 14-year-old kid is pushing with all his might, and he doesn't know if there's a fucking guy up there with a gun going to shoot him when he gets out of there or what. And then the bus driver guy comes over. He's about 60 years old, 55 or so. He starts pushing, helping. The kid's able to get his arm up there. The bus driver's able to hold the manhole cover up long enough for the kid to get the fucking batteries off the fucking manhole cover and then push himself up. Then he gets up into this thing, and then I got a little confused at this point exactly how the cowboy kid, because I think they put another kid up there, like an 11-year-old, and they had to like scratch and kick and just go, and they were in this damn thing for like 12 hours, okay? And the kids are defecating on themselves and urinating on themselves. There's not enough water. I'm happily surprised that none of the children died from, I mean, it sounds, can you die from anxiety or just heat or lack of air or just something? But amazingly, all the children survived at the time. The two kids are able to get out. They're not being held captive, they discover. The asshole kidnappers had gone off home to dinner, for crying out loud. And the kids are able to escape and get all the other kids out and the bus driver out. And then they're all walking around there. I'm sure they were full of fear and famished, although they're happy to not be buried alive. And they're looking over their shoulders thinking we might get shot at any minute. And this person emerges, and the person's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I just saw all you folks on the news. Everyone's looking for you. And so lo and behold, they're rescued. They are saved. Or they save themselves. I mean, I think that's the whole story here. And there's so many elements to this documentary. And I just discovered that there's a 1993 movie. I believe it's called Vanished Without a Trace, that I've never heard of either, never seen it. It's on Amazon Prime. I'll probably watch that tonight. So, because that's what I've been doing lately. I did that with the... did I do a review of The Creator and the Inventor? The Elizabeth Holmes stuff? I didn't, but maybe I should. So anyway, we basically discover that, was his name Mike? Yeah, his name was Mike. I'm trying to remember his last name. I think maybe Mitchell. He had similar to me an MM name, Mike, last name M. And the 14-year-old cowboy never got his due credit. The press and the media gave all the credit to the bus driver. And sure, look, the important, and like Mike says it himself, as an adult, he's still alive. He says, hey, look, I was just trying to tell myself just to be happy that we all lived. But, a certain part of me felt overlooked here because I was the real goddamned hero the whole time, not this 65-year-old bus driver. And the kids were too small to speak up for their buddy. And, it's one of those things where, yeah, you should just be happy to be alive. But wouldn't it be nice if the cowboy got like a teddy bear or something? They all got a trip to Disneyland, which is nice. But, I mean, it didn't solve their problems. And we discover in the documentary that a lot of these children grew up to have issues. And this whole case, there's a psychiatrist lady who's in this thing. She's still alive. And she's basically saying these children were like, they weren't even volunteers, but they were drafted into the world of psychology and post-traumatic stress disorder studies and abuse to children studies and all these things, realizing you really have to give these kids some therapy right away. And that now they do things like that when you have a school shooting. Columbine is referenced, that there's, I mean, of course, it might be easier just to put a fucking prison, not a prison, a police officer or a security guard at each public high school or public school. I mean, not to get into it, but I'll get into it. I mean, it seems like you pay this, $35 an hour. So what, a couple of $100 a day per security officer, one or two at each public school. And isn't that worth the price to protect the school? I would think so, but I guess other assholes in the world don't. So anyway, going back to this scenario, these poor kids, I mean, the movie really makes you angry. It's just, the childhood was robbed. Their teens were robbed. Some of these kids did better than others, but I think it's fair to say that all 25 were affected with an A, one way or another. Makes me upset, to be honest with you. And the three fucking assholes, they all get sentenced to life in prison. Then somehow or another that gets overturned, and they're saying, well, there was no physical damage to the kids. Well, I mean, to me, I'll say this: the charges that they had were like kidnapping and bodily harm was a charge that was, I guess, overturned. Isn't it attempted murder? To be quite honest, I mean, why wouldn't I be quite honest? But if you're putting people underground, buried in a fucking thing with limited air and limited food and nowhere to defecate, and and these are children, for Christ's sakes, why isn't it? To me, that's attempted murder. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, if they discuss, like they said, the kids said, the sand or the dirt or the whatever the fuck was starting to cave in on them, their lives were in danger. Okay, and the kidnappers weren't even standing by. Okay, so I mean, they could have easily been smothered. These 25 children and the bus driver. To me, that's attempted murder on 26 people. So I don't understand the goddamn legal system. And apparently these three assholes were three rich assholes. They all had very influential families. And although they were all in debt, which, you know, these rich fucks don't know how to do anything right. So anyway, they all get fucking life sentences, but they all get paroled. So one guy gets out in 36 years, another one in 39, and another one, I believe, in 46. And the guy that got out in 46, I think he's the one that got married 3 times in prison. He's running all these multi-million-dollar businesses while in prison. So he seems like a real scumbag. Interestingly, one of the children who was kidnapped becomes a pastor. He does the whole forgiveness routine. He forgives, he kind of like bonds with one of the abductors, the one that seemed like the least asshole-ish of the assholes, like the one that was kind of the hanger-on. Oh my God. My neck. But basically, this is the type of documentary. It's fascinating, but it's also upsetting. How can people do such things to kids? I mean, to anybody, really, but especially to children. I mean, even if you got to the point where you were on the fucking, you know, like if you got to the point of madness when you're on the fucking bus and you're holding a gun, and then you get onto the fucking bus, and then you see the kids like crying, wouldn't you just stop right there? Wouldn't you say, okay, let's cut this off. Let's, you know, sorry, trick or treat. Let's just leave. I mean, but these assholes have no goddamn sense of humanity. And it just pisses me off, you know, and of course the lawyers have to do their job, but the lawyers, oh yeah, well, the kids are fine. Well, go fuck yourself. So any goddamn way, folks, I say it's an interesting thing. I mean, it's sad, you know, I mean, there's something about our world that does not value the lives of children. Children are always getting the short end of the goddamn stick. Yes, they're brats, and they play their video games, and they talk too loud, but and they leave bubble gum and everything all over the place. But you know, they're still people, and they're kids. So how can you do these things? It's very disturbing to me that people could act this way and do these horrible goddamn things. Just repugnant. So I hope the 3 assholes rot in hell for eternity. And I guess they're all enjoying being rich assholes and free. But fuck them. Each one of them is a piece of shit. Okay? So that's it, folks. So yeah, it's a good documentary. Mike Messier.